exercise. Let me start. Let me get my screen started here. And so, anyway, what this is intended to be is kind of an overview coordination meeting. Previously, we'd hold this at TransStar, but from what I understand, with all the COVID levels and stuff, we would have been restricted to just a handful of people that could have attended in the room. So this is the most practical thing to do. And I guess the good news is that we don't have to drive very far. The bad news, I don't buy you coffee, so you'll have to go to your kitchen and get your own cup of coffee. So I'm hoping we can get through the material here in about a couple hours. Previously, at the end of my presentation, we broke into little clatches or groups where people with similar assignments could share some details and perhaps give some tutoring to the new folks. Obviously, that's not practical this time. So anyway, it may get a little bit longer if we get into any extended Q&A. So anyway, if I could ask you if you wouldn't mind opening the chat and putting your name and call sign in. That's a poor man's way of taking attendance. I normally used to have attendance sheets at the back of the doors, and so that isn't happening. But so anyway, if you could put your name and call sign in, I'd appreciate it. This year has been a challenge. And so I put this slide in. This is a brand new slide. I've never put this in any of my slide packs before. But that little thing that we've all come to know and love called the COVID is got itself stuck all over the place. That may be the new Mr. Murphy. So anyway, I've been listening. The whole efforts to get this thing rolling this year got started a month and a half later than normal. And so from what I've discerned listening to the staff running around, they've had supply chain issues. If it came by land or if it came by sea, if it came by air shipment, it's all gotten tangled up in supply chain issues. The jackets that I'm supposed to give to you, or the little vest, got stuck on a ship off the coast of Los Angeles until like the end of November, and then it got held up in customs, and I think it's still, some of them still may be in customs. So I am not promising to give you any swag or any trinkets this year yet. I will get it to you, but I don't think I will get it to you before the event because nobody's got it right now. So they've, some people have asked me, am I going to get this email? Why, I should have gotten this email. And yes, in the normal world of scheduling, you would have gotten some confirmation emails, some parking things. And so all of that, the staffing has been a challenge this year for everybody. So they've kept the registration open. It's still open, and I'm not sure when they're going to close it. And so all of the normal processes of sending out confirmations where you can print it out and park downtown and all that, it's still up in the air. And so a lot of issues along staffing with that. The local government's response is been slower than in the past because of all the issues that they're having to address that's related to COVID issues. And so some venues, the venue disruptions because of supplier chain and other issues. And so it's just going on and on and on. So anyway, one of the recent briefings that we've had on the committee level, one of the things that they're stressing is that on internal venues and all, they're requesting people to wear masks. And so and to protect yourselves and others, this Omicron variant seems to be inflicting lots of folks. In fact, my ham lunch bunch, we've had two of the members have come down with the new variant. They're both of them have described it as not being worse than a bad cold or even a mild cold, But nonetheless, it's one of those things that will take you off the streets for 3 to 5 days. So anyway, and a special thanks to the Oak Forest Amateur Radio Club for hosting today's Zoom call, and particularly Jeremy Pinner, KG5PYY, is the host on this one. And for the folks that just joined, if you don't mind putting your name and call sign in the chat, that'll assist in taking attendance. So I've got a few items here. We'll talk a little bit about a marathon overview, and I'll go into the marathon statistics, some course maps, the closure, opening times, and talk a little bit about an interactive map that's available and through the efforts of Peter Belbin, and in some start line and finish lines. We'll talk a little bit about ham assignments, and then we'll talk about the parking lot B pickups and stuff like that. And we may have to have a dialogue, and there may be some follow-up dialogue emails along that line because it's an evolving thing. And we'll talk about the activities at the GRB, at the Unified Command Center, which is at the Houston Office of Emergency Management. We'll talk a little bit about net operations. I've tried to put some new things in and some of the evolution in what we're trying to do this year compared to other years. So anyway, here's some of the facts, I guess, around here. There's a 5K fun run. It's a race for about 20 minutes. And then it's a fun run. It's about 90 minutes in duration. It's Saturday morning. That kicks off at 8 o'clock. The marathon, in contrast, kicks off at about 10 minutes to 7. And the actual marathon itself kicks off at 7:01 because they've learned in the past that if you schedule everything at 7, the TV announcers are still trying to sign on and get things set up, and everybody misses the start of the marathon because all you see are TV announcers. So they've delayed the start of the marathon to 7:01. But this year, they've got over 28,300 runners, participants, and which is as many as it's always been. My daughter-in-law is one of the runners in the half marathon, and she has been training and listening to her enthusiasm and desire to run. I suspect there's 28,300 plus people that are just dying to get out there and run. So anyway, thanks for everybody on this call for being part of the efforts to make that happen. There are over 10,000 people that's running the full marathon and over 18,000 people that are scheduled to run the half marathon. And so there's more than like 6,000 out-of-town participants, and participants generally from all 50 states and about 45 countries is kind of the historic figures that I've seen, and so we'll keep on with that. This year, I got these figures yesterday, or day before yesterday. So they've got a lot of focus on athletes with disabilities, and so the 5K starts at 7:50, and for the 5K is at 8 o'clock, and the half marathon and full marathon is 6:50. But even in the 5K, they've got a number of people. They've got 4 hand cycles, 11 wheelchairs. Duals, I'm not quite sure what that is. I've got to look that up again. I've slept since the last time I looked at that. They've got 18 visually impaired people. They've got 29 guides that's helping these folks, and they've got some mobility impaired people. So that's the 5K. On the full and half marathon, they've got 6 wheelchairs, 6 in the half marathon, 16 hand cycles, 20 in the half marathon. 2 duals and 6 in the half marathon. They've got 9 and 20 visually impaired in each of the races. Mobility impaired 2 and 8, and then I'm not quite sure what that is. And a total guides of 58. So as you are along the race on the course, the first thing that you will see if you're out on the course is you see this blazing guy that goes zinging by on a hand cycle a hand-cranked hand cycle. And those guys are so fast that people on bicycles have a difficult time to keep up with them. And so anyway, the one of the challenges that I've heard is that is actually getting the course set up fast enough where these guys have got a shot through without running into something or somebody or barrels being put in place. The 5K race has not changed from 2020, from 2019 as far as for the course, but it starts off near Discovery Green on the north side of Discovery Green. Run down McKinney to Fannin, out to I think Rosalie Street, around. There's a single water station right here, and then it goes into the finish line at Discovery Green. The finish line is circa at the end of the Hilton Hotel. Basically, I want to say that's on Lamar. Lamar coming in. So essentially, about where the Grove restaurant is in Discovery Green is where you'll find the finish line, approximately that location. I've got people essentially set at every kilometer mark, and I want you to know that the amateur radio operators for the 5K are the most well representative of volunteers for this group. So anyway, I've told one of the guys that's wringing his hands that has no volunteers, that I generally have some ham, so I may volunteer you to do other duties. So, instead of being all congregated in one spot, you may get to be spread out. So I've got to have a dialogue this week with the folks that are trying to staff this thing. In the past, they've actually had to worry about bringing 2 bus loads of Girl Scouts there to staff and do some things on the 5K. This year, I think they have exactly 1 Girl Scout volunteer. So when I say the volunteers are difficult this year, that was one of the examples that that brought it home, is that just the involvement in some groups that have historically turned out in big numbers aren't there this year. So, and I have not sent out the list of the 5K. I'll send out an email blast that basically will show all the assignments. I've sent 2 or 3 people who've inquired, kind of like a snapshot of where they are. I was waiting to get near the end of all the assignment shuffles, and so we essentially they are there. So I'll probably be pushing that thing out this weekend or Monday, the latest. But essentially, like I said, there's like 4 to 6 people at each of the kilometer marks, and also at the water station. There's probably a fewer number. But anyway, that's the scheme. The full marathon course is relatively the same as in 2022. There was a few changes, and excuse me. They've got a number of issues along the way. A lot of construction, and if anyone lives in the southwest part of town or works around or has any business around the Galleria area, this has been a traffic nightmare for the last few years. So the course is goes down West Park, does a little tight turnaround, basically right by the big power substation at forget the name of the street, at substation in Wesleyan, and they go back underneath the freeway and go through the normal course into downtown. One big change this year, you may have seen in the news about the Memorial Park Land Bridge, and so the race is scheduled to go through the tunnels of the land bridge. They're essentially completed enough, and so they're trying to make the route as fast as they can for the distance. And so this event will be the very first, and the traffic that will go through there, the first vehicles that will go through there in an automotive fashion will be the pace vehicles, and the race course vehicles will be the first to use this tunnel. So it's they're trying to pitch that as being a great way of celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Houston Marathon. My understanding was that the first marathon that was held, the Houston Marathon, and Walter may have participated in that, but it was a 4-loop around Memorial Park. So anyway, in from the annals of time, they're trying to link it back to the very first ones. And the start line, there's a change. They moved the start line a block to accommodate the shift in some of the courses. So that's one of the changes for the full marathon. The half marathon, it certainly has the change because the half and full start at the same spot and end at the same spot, and generally they've got I guess some little, like the West Park turnaround is the stretchy string part that they use to adjust. That's their adjustment for the full marathon to adjust for any distances they need. But this year, they had been running around the Museum of Fine Arts and going around that and then going back up Montrose. This year, what they're doing is actually directing people to go down towards Meekum Fountain, run around Meekum Fountain, where they can see the fountain and also get a view of Herman Park, and then run up Montrose. So that's a small change. I guess the city of Houston and the Marathon Committee folks were wanting to do that to highlight some of the finer parts of Houston. So it's a little bit for the visitors to come in to see a little bit more of the grandeur of Houston. The course is broken up into sectors, and they've got essentially a downtown sector and then 6 sectors. And so what you hear is when you start talking about Sector 1, Sector 2, you have a kind of a definition. So the downtown outbound sector starts at the start line and basically ends at Washington and Houston streets. And that's where Sector 1 begins. And then Sector 1 ends and Sector 2 begins here at West Gray and Shepherd. So I've got this in here, and this is kind of the definitions. And some of those sector definitions have shifted a little bit, but nothing substantial, but they've been defined and refined just a little bit. The Sector 3 half marathon begins at Montrose and Allen Parkway, and the downtown sector begins at, it's actually begins probably down at near the Museum District where the split is. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Here's the full and half marathon sectors, and right here is where I'm pointing is the full half split. The full goes down here to Main Street, then comes across on University, and the half marathon loops around Meekum Fountain, goes back up to the Allen Parkway, then goes downtown. So that's where the split is just in the Rice University general area. The marathon wanders through the Galleria, through the area of residential areas northwest of the Galleria, back on the Memorial and into back to downtown. At Shepherd, it crosses back over from Memorial down into Allen Parkway, and so the race goes into downtown, and the half marathon is actually coming into downtown on the north side of Allen Parkway, and on the outbound side, and the full marathon is coming in on the south side, on the inbound side of Allen Parkway. The refueling stations are here. They've been adjusted a little bit. One of the things that they have done this year, which makes an incredible amount of sense for volunteers and also runners, is that they've co-located the refueling stations, the Gatorade stations, the medical stations, and the Sag stops. They've all collated. When I say co-located, if you have something at mile 20, generally you have all four of these things at mile 20. There's some exceptions, but generally in the past, see here, and this is the medical stations, and so if you take a look, that you'll see that the medical and the SAG stops are identical, and they are within a block of all the water stations and the likes. So that's been one of the things, and so anyway, that's I think a positive change, and so what I've generally done on these two is that I have a amateur radio operator assigned that's on the refueling station, and then I have one that's on the Sag and bus stops. There are two different nets that are going on there. The one that's doing the refueling will be on the course net, which generally is the 14700 repeater. And then the ones that are on the Sag net will be a UHF repeater of 444.025. And so those two, and those of you who have a handheld that you can do VHF, UHF, you can put them both in. But I will ask that you listen on most intently on your primary channel. That's the Rick Broussard admonition to pay attention to your channel. You can listen to other channels, but pay attention to the net that you're assigned to. So that's my Rick Broussard admonition of the morning. What's important, and I may have sent this out, but I'll probably resend it out, is the road closure times. And I know I've struggled with why should we meet at downtown at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so when you take a look at things, what you start seeing, like right here along Chimney Rock, which is the part of the residential area, you see they're scheduling to close the streets at 7:15 in the morning. If you actually get towards downtown, you see that some of these streets they're closing at 6:15 in the morning. So generally I shoo all the hams out of downtown about 5 o'clock in the morning. It gives you time to get to the Whataburgers or whatever breakfast place you need to get your coffee and some sort of substance, and out to the streets and there before any of the crowds and all that, and before the police start shutting it down. So that's why there's such an early start, is because they actually close the streets down. They actually will start closing some of the streets downtown Thursday morning, where they can start setting up the start lines and the finish lines. So some of the streets around the courthouse will actually start closing Thursday, and then the streets around the GRB and all get closed on Friday. And there's just this mad scramble to put up all the equipment and fencing, security fencing that's associated with that. One of the things that Peter has done, Peter Belbin, on hmhams.org, I got nearly all of the assignments up to date. I've got to go back and touch up a few of the assignments. But one of the bonuses that you have is an interactive map that Peter has provided. So if you go there, he's actually updated the course and some of the assets along the course. And so it's an interactive map that at least lets you find the Sag Medical stops and the water station. So it gives you a better idea. On the assignments that I've emailed, I've tried to put detail in that. The Refueling 17 isn't too descriptive, but I've also tried to provide across streets on some of the emails I've sent to everybody that details more of the cross streets that you need to be. And so if there's any confusion, let me know, but I will try to resolve that. But anyway, this is a resource, and if you go to www.hmhams.org and assignments, you'll come up to that page. You can click on the titles of the columns and labels on the columns, and it will sort that column for you. And so if you want to look up yourself by call sign, click the calls, our name, last names, click that. So anyway, it should list the assignments. You should be able to click the assignments. So if you want to see, who's on either side of you, that's possible too. So anyway, that's available. The start line this year is very similar to last year, where you see the start line right here. Last year was right here, so they've moved it forward essentially a block. So I guess the start line now is on Fannin. Last year was on San Jacinto, and so and Congress. So that's where the runners will be exiting downtown. Essentially, is from Fannin and Congress, which is right there by all the courthouses, and I see I remember one of the first years I assigned somebody a brand new ham. I wasn't paying too much. The first time I did this, I wasn't paying too much attention to where these things were, and I assigned them, and they wound up being right across the street from the Harris County Jail, about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And what, unbeknownst to me, they've released lots of their prisoners that early. So they were actually making buddies and drinking coffee with some folks that just were exiting the confinement across the street. So anyway, we'll try not to do that to people. I haven't heard for sure, but in the past, about 2 or 3 years ago, particularly after some of the mass shootings in Nevada, they set some essentially breakaway gates, and so a lot of these corrals that are actually fenced in, they've got breakaway sections where if there's something that goes on, you can knock and remove some of these people where people can disperse as opposed to being trapped. So that's some of the plans and all that's gone into the planning portion of for the public safety of this. The other thing in part of the protocols, at least in the past that I'm aware of, is that they place dump trucks loaded with sand and gravel at judiciously around town to keep people and from vehicles from coming in. So there's an incredible amount of security that has gone into the makings of this. Additionally, there's SWAT officers, patrol people, and agents in plain and uniform that are running around. So there's a lot of folks down there that's related to security. I think overall the marathon utilizes nearly 800 officers of various forms to secure the event. We talked about the finish line, and here's an example of the finish line. You'll hear me talk about Balcony D and the Lamar Balcony. This is where the Ham set up their control station. Is right here. Paul and Walter are a couple of folks that will be there. The CourseNet net control station will be right here by the finish line or away from the finish line. The finish line here is at the Hilton Americas Hotel, basically right there at Crawford Street on the south side of Discovery Green. And so anyway, that's the current one. The bibs, they change the bibs every year, and this is a sample of the bibs. And I guess they've got different bib designs based on which corrals people are running in. And they've also, in the past, I think they've also got some different bibs that's not advertised here. So there's a group of folks that try to spot the lead runners, and spotting the lead runners are sometimes difficult. So the very, very elite runners have got different badges than the general populace, and they may have their name as opposed to a number. As you see right here, you'll see a name, and so they've got a field. They've got a field of about 300, 400 elite runners. On a call that I was in on Thursday, they were talking about they don't think they've got anybody that's going to break the marathon standing record, but the half marathon, there's 3 or 4 people that have got credentials and foot times that they could potentially take and set a new course record for Houston. There's 300 or 400 runners that are actually trying to qualify for things like the Olympics. So there's going to be a substantial number of pretty competitive runners, and then there'll be the other 10,000 or 20,000, 30,000 people. The this is an old slide. I don't have anything updated on that. So what do we do? What do hams do? And I know Giant had asked me to give a presentation for the NASA club a couple times, and it's one of the things I tried to do that. So those of you who are fairly new, and I appreciate all the folks that have volunteered for the first time, it's like, what do we do? So we provide tactical communication for race status, logistics, medical and emergency support, operational information using 2 meters and 70 centimeters, and data communications and tracking via APRS. We've done that for a number of years. We focus on participant inspector safety information. So if we see something, and so I will ask everybody, if you see a radio car that's stuck on the course or next to the course, or you see the infamous Boston backpack sitting on the ground that nobody wants to do, say something, get the police officer, call it into the UCC, and so if you call it into net control and it's an issue, we actually have people monitoring all the nets at the Unified Command Center that will pass it over to police, and they'll actually dispatch police from there to go check it out. Emergency needs, there's a runner down, there's some injuries, there's an accident that happened, or there's a whole bunch of folks that are acting suspiciously. Those are type of reports to go in. So that whole thing that deals around public safety and just the welfare of the general populace is some of the things that we do. And we coordinate information, status information, participant counts, SAG needs. The net control folks may be asking you to go and ask somebody for some information or to go check. There are things like for the SAG stops, periodically they may take a poll or ask you if you see a large quantity of folks building up at SAG stop 18, call it in. Say, hey, I've got 300 people sitting here waiting to be picked up. And so that type of information on a timely fashion will help them to manage the assets from the UCC and change it from a time pickup to maybe a demand pickup arrangement. Medical and emergency backup. The course officials have gone and they're getting loaner P25 radios from the city of Houston and Harris County. And that has substantially upgraded their communication ability to the field. Prior to that, they leased some radios from a local vendor. The issue with the local radios is that none of the staff members could ever figure out how to use those radios. So anyway, the last few years, the supplier with the P25s has provided the public safety is the best radio network anybody has in town, and so the coverage is superb. They've got in-buildage coverage, so those are difficult things that the previous arrangement didn't have. So anyway, we serve more of a backup for that, but what we've also found out, like from some of the race officials, they're so busy they don't have time to play with the radio. So what the ham radio guys will typically do, like for shadows, is actually operate the radio. So anyway, if you're at a place and the guys say, hey, I don't want to fool with this, take the P25 radios and operate it and listen and relay any information to the manager of the site. That's appropriate. We will, if the public safety agencies want to know, is like something happens about how many people are there, we'll ask you to do a quick count and relay that in. The logistics and coordination support, a lot of times, for instance, there's a manhole cover that somehow got knocked off. We've called in those things, and Public Works is actually sitting in the UCC, and they'll dispatch an emergency crew to go take care of road conditions along the way. The communication facilitator. These are typically shadows, and they're basically a personal assistance, and they provide mostly communication. But we had 1 year in Sector 4 in the West Park turnaround. The sector captain just got overwhelmed, and he turned to the ham and said, "Jim, can you get this thing set up?" And Jim looked at him and said, "You got a drawing?" And so he gave him a little bitty sketchy drawing, and Jim set up the West Park turnaround. Now the head guy came by, and they had set the cones up too tight, and they had to adjust some cones and move some bleachers back. But essentially, the major work got done. So I always tell the shadows, don't be surprised what you wind up doing. It's always it could always be a treat, or at least a challenge. And so the ham radio operators generally provide their own radio equipment. That's one of the things we bring is radio equipment and all the repeaters. There's probably 15, 20 guys right now working on top of a building trying to get some repeaters squared away for this event. So anyway, these are some of the nets for the marathon. We've got the course, and related to that is an approach net. And so when you look at downtown, we've got regular people scheduled along the way, but a few years back, when the runners got inside of I-45 downtown, we lost a lot of visibility. So I've got a number of hams that are on what I call the approach net. It's a net where they'll relay the runners or where the runners are coming into downtown. Where that's timely is getting the race officials where they can get the right pomp and circumstance set up, and ribbons across the race where the guy can break the ribbon as he finishes. So anyway, it's kind of a heads up. It gives them a couple 3 minutes worth of warning time, and but Jeff Walters generally is stationed down there. He's the anchor, and Shadow's the finish line coordinator. And so he's the one relaying the guy that says, "Hey, your lead runners just came through downtown, or got into downtown, and they're at Main Street and San Jacinto and so forth." In the course that Paul Owens is the net control station has been historically. There may be a few new voices, depending if they do any handoffs, but that's operated out of the GRB, and so Paul doesn't like my designator, so if he tells you to use a different tactical call, please comply. I'm not the most tactful person when it comes to signing tac call signs. So anyway,
I tried to keep it simple.
Yeah. So anyway, keep Paul happy, please. And then there's the Sag Medical Stations. Generally I've assigned a ham, and that's the UHF one. The anchor part of that is going to be at the UCC. The UCC also monitors the course net and some of the other nets as they can. And so they're coordinating with the medical staff that's there. So if there's we spot a down runner, we can pass that to them, or they can dispatch bike medics or ambulances as the need is. We'll also help monitor the people that's in queue for SAG pickup. If there's a situation or the SAG radio doesn't work or something like that, we provide a backup communications because it can be critical. The weather looks like it's going to be fairly cooperative, but there's an increased probability of rain. And so one year we had a situation where the race started at nearly 80 degrees. It rained like crazy for 10 minutes, got everybody soaked, and then the temperature dropped to about upper 30s. That was the year that I think they had 7,000 people sag out. We were prepared to handle about 300. So needless to say, that was a scramble. And so anyway, the weather situations are always dynamic, and so we could get pressed into doing a fair amount of public safety communications if those need arises. The lead pack is an area that's being redefined. And historically, we used to have people in the back that would call in on the timing net status of the runners, so anyway, that's being redefined. If you look on your frequency plan that I sent out twice when we discovered we had a dead repeater on the first list, there's some incident and tactical commands. We did an exercise, a tabletop exercise, several years ago, and the scenario was the race was about half. Everybody was out of downtown, and somebody came off with a vehicle off the Southwest Freeway at Kirby, ran through all the barriers, killed 20 people at Kirby and the Southwest Freeway, continued down to Feeder Street, crashed and had a wreck with 5 vehicles, basically at Greenbrier or Shepherd. What would you do? And that was the year that I went back and added some tactical and incident channels. So what would happen on that situation is that, and the situation was half the runners were through that point. And so essentially what you had was a half marathon and a full marathon that was going on, and then you had half the runners that basically were in corrals C, D, and E that were now in a fun run. And so what they were going to do is start backing people up and having them retrace their steps into downtown via the exit path. And then the other races would continue going in on the designated paths. And so essentially you had a race and a people recovery, plus you wind up having to rearrange things. And so that whole scenario prompted me to realize we needed some additional channels where you could either bifurcate or trifurcate the event and have different operations going on in different places. So anyway, that's the purpose of those tactical nets. This is kind of a summary slide, and I pretty well talked to some of that. But anyway, what the course net is, readiness, notifications, abnormal operating conditions. Talked about the approach line, the lead pack, and the timing. So, like I said, the timing is being redefined, and I appreciate everybody's patience as we work through. My purpose in hams, just to make sure, is that what I want is I don't want to waste anybody's time, and I want all of us to contribute to the success of the marathon, but I also want us to have some sort of meaningful contribution. So anyway, it's like any job function that all of us have gone through. It evolves with time and technology. So that's one of the things that we're doing, is evolving with time and technology. Looking for ham operators of all experience. Some of you have just gotten your license, may have passed a few bit. There's a few of us like me that's been banging around since 1967, and so we've got amateurs of all experience levels and backgrounds, which is one of the real attractions of our hobby. Course assignments is of somewhere along the course, and refueling stop, medical assistance, critical points in the course. In the past, I've actually had people at the West Park turn around because it was in a really crazy spot. The net control operators like Paul and Walter basically keep the beat of the communication going in orderly fashion. As things are logged, so we've got folks that are dealing with loggers and so forth. Rick Broussard has put together some Google spreadsheets that we use and to log this information. That way information's available at the HEC and Homeland Security Office at TransStar. So anyway, these individuals typically are high-skilled, highly proficient people. And this year I've tried to make sure we have a large contingency. In the tabletop of this year, they started mentioning web EOC. And so I've made sure that we have an adequate sprinkling of people that's hanging out at the HEC that's got training and experience with web EOC and all the incident command structure that we would typically flip to if there's an incident. The race official shuttle assignment I described earlier, where you basically are riding in the car, and so this is one of the things. If you I tell people, if you ever wanted to ride in the back of a police car, this is the assignment, because typically you ride in the back of a patrol car, and it is the most uncomfortable seat I think I've ever seen. And typically, when you ride back there, you've got your hands cuffed behind your back. And so it is generally not the most comfortable ride, but it can be pretty going. So I got this email a few days ago from the Sector 2 Captain Fujio, and he's like, preparation for opening Sector 2 is a mad rush, so keep up with timeline, and radio communication gets pretty hectic. Biggest role for our ham op is to keep us informed of sector opening acknowledgments, change of frequencies for roll call, keep up with race start, location of runners, TV vehicles, incident reported, of course, finally where the end runner and turtle is located, and so forth. So these guys are generally scrambling like crazy to get all their fueling resources and cones in place and position and inspecting everything. And so, quite frankly, the last thing in the world that any of these guys wants to do is play with a radio. And so the shadows typically are walking around with 2 or 3 radios, and you may actually be operating, watching his cell phone for messages that are coming in, and just verbally telling him. I know in the past, a lot of them have hopped, depending the vehicle that you're in, hop out and move stuff or help move some things. I'm sure that more than once they've hopped out of a car and move all the cones in a 30-foot section over a few inches or whatever. So anyway, this is a kind of a dynamic assignment. The PACE vehicles this year, in the past we had folks riding in the back, and the folks riding in the back would actually call in the split times. Way back when, this is how we actually captured the where people were on the course. Since then, you've got trackers, and they've got a whole contingency of, Rice University volunteers that ride in the back, that are on Twitter, that are on different social media, that's on different, web-connected platforms that are entering this data. And 10 years or so ago, Charlie Matthews, I remember one time, went in the media room with his ham radio station and tracking information, and he had all the reporters looking over his shoulder, because the information that he had was probably 2 minutes before what was coming out of all the official channels. Technology has passed us, and so anyway, moving on, and so we'll have to resolve what our true function is. So anyway, this year we've got folks in the cabs only. It's an evolving role. We'll assist the drivers like we normally do. One of the main roles that is to keep the vehicles separated, where they don't run into each other when they start off. And then later on is just to help the drivers maintain distance and all that. And also, you don't want to run into the camera vehicle or barriers. So anyway, it's kind of again one of these functions. I've never done this function, so I don't have any first-hand experience. But some of the folks like Cherie and Michael and Dave Fennell and Jeffrey Harbour have done it for a number of years, and so they're the experts. I just put this in. It's a kind of a snapshot from some information that we have out on Peter's website that shows what some of the things when you sign up with what the promise is. I don't have a ham per se on the turtle function, but there are some vehicles that associate with the turtle function. They've got a couple of metro buses, city buses that are picking up people, and there's Mike Root will probably go back there. So chances are he'll be our de facto turtle. So anyway, we've got a ham riding with Mike, and Mike is a ham. Mike got his ticket earlier this year, so if you hear KI5 PHP, give him lots of respect. He's the guy that we report into in the Houston Marathon office. The I mentioned earlier about phasing out the medical applications. I'm in the process of pulling the 4 hams that have volunteered to ride the SAG vehicles. At one time, the hams operated the SAG vehicles, and so now they've got a medical application that runs on an iPad that's integrated in the running tracking system, medical systems, and generally it's operated by a volunteer. So I was talking with one of the guys. He said, yeah, last year he didn't call anything because there was a person there calling in when people got on. What we had done in the past is actually call in the bib numbers and monitor their apparent medical condition. I won't say medical condition, but if we saw somebody that was getting into some sort of difficulty or physical ailments that we could spot with a semi-trained eye, we call it in and make sure we'd have some medical people meet the SAG van or bus somewheres and do that. And so anyway, we were not riding these this year, and we'll let the medical people in their integrated application handle this phase of the operations. The time involved. So for the 5K, I used to have everybody meet at the Minute Maid Park at Lot B. I may still ask you to do that. I've got to sort that out. I just found out yesterday that the parking lots would be available. It's been up in the air. The City of Houston opened a COVID testing site in Minute Maid parking C Lot C. And so what was unknown, and at least to me until yesterday, is that could we even get to the parking lots? So there's no published information for volunteer parking anywheres on any of the Houston Marathon websites or portals. And so it's just been largely unknown, and I think is resolved. So on Saturday and Sunday, they're anticipating opening Lot C, but they're leaving some of the assets, the fixed assets for COVID testing in place, just simply removing the cones. So anyway, so the folks that are coming down to for the 5K. Hang on a second. For the 5K race, we may very well meet on Lot B, and so and you'll be able to park your car there, or you're welcome to drive to your location. So anyway, I've got to sort that out, and I apologize again. It's this COVID thing has got everything on its ear, including timing. So and then just be available to roughly 10 a.m. The race is 90 minutes, and so generally we clear out before then, but it starts at 8, and so about 9:30, the race run is over, and so 10 o'clock is the outside time. So it's fairly early. The advantage of used to be for volunteering this is that you could get all your stuff that I was giving out on Saturday, and you wouldn't have to come downtown on Sunday, which is a real plus. The other thing from a practical point of view, it gives you a chance to check out your gear, make sure your headsets work on something that isn't quite as critical, it isn't quite as noisy, isn't quite as everything. So it's a good equipment shakedown and just to see things. So anyway, I'll send probably email. I will send out email correspondence that will clarify the 5K race here shortly. For meeting around 4 to 4:30 for the packet pickup at Minute Maid. The story this year is that they're not issuing any credentials for people along the race. So if you have a course assignment outside of downtown, I have no credentials. The little jackets or the vests that they're supposed to be the gimmies, I don't know if they'll be available. There's a big question mark if they'll even be available Saturday. And so all the materials that I normally pick up 2 weeks in advance. In fact, I was thinking that this was an unusual Christmas because usually my house is decorated with 7 or 8 boxes of marathon stuff and underneath the Christmas tree. And this year there's been none. So anyway, that's there may not be a need for most people to go downtown. Now, if you're operating in the GRB, excuse me a second. I'm supposed to get credentials. I'm supposed to get credentials Friday or Saturday, and so I'll need to get credentials to use some kind of way. I do have a parking pass that I will send people that's stationed for downtown or shuttles. I'll send you a parking pass by email. The standard one that we typically have done may not be there. So anyway, many of you will finish before 2 p.m. But those of you that are shadowing somebody or at mile 20 something will be maybe 2 p.m. by the time you finish. In most cases, the furthest place along the course that I can see from the repeaters is about 7 miles. So a handheld with a long antenna probably will suffice. If you're on the course, you should be able to park close by, and you can use your vehicle's radio if it's in a particularly bad spot. This one I talked about earlier before is if you have.
Lee, can I break in here for a minute?
Yes, please.
Can we take a quick break?
We can. I'm just pumped up. That's all. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? So the big hand right now is on here. So when the little hand gets on 10, we'll start up again. Okay, is that good, Bill? All right. I'll mark time.
Repeaters actually be set up
I'm sorry.
When will the repeaters be set up? I was going to go down and scope out the area where I'm going to be assigned, and I was hoping to be able to test to see if I was making the UHF repeater.
The repeaters are operational. They're some of the core repeaters in Houston.
Oh, and so they're okay. They're not being set up just for this.
No, these are not special. I mean, these are full-time repeaters.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So any time of day. In fact, I took after a ham lunch on last Wednesday, we took a run down into the Heights or the North Montrose, and did a couple chunks because guys were wondering if their handhelds would work, and so I took a ride with them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, they've got a work crew. Rick Broussard is and others are on a work crew right now trying to blow the dust off of one of the repeaters.
Hey, Lee, Gus here.
Hey, Gus, good morning.
All right, good to see you. Will you make these slides available, or?
Yes, I will. I'll push them out. I don't think I've got any deep dark secrets. The one thing I will say, there are some numbers that towards the back of this thing that is the call-in numbers for the UCC. Don't write them in any of the signs or back of signs or anything like that. But it's information that you probably need to know as hams. What number. The problem is it's going to be a single phone line, and so just like any single server queues, you call in and not get anybody to answer. So that's one of the values. Earl and Ben will be staffing the general course radio at the UCC. So if there's something you need to contact, if you call, what Paul will do is defer to the UCC and let Earl or Ben pick up the traffic, and hey, I got an emergency, and so they'll get logged and they'll turn around and hand it right out the door where they are, is the police and medical people, so they can 3 steps away. They can hand the report over to them.
Roger that. Okay, thanks.
Hey, Lee,
Yes, sir.
this is Mike, W50FT. What time are the vehicles leaving the back of the GRB, the PACE vehicles?
I mean, I think they usually, again, information is scarce. The I can call the guy. I sent out. He corresponded with me, and I passed who the drivers are, and also Jim Kelly, I guess, is the main guy. I know in the past they've left about 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I can never remember. I've done it a million times, but I can't remember if it was 5 or 5:30 or what.
Well, generally we try to scoot you guys, chase you out. Well, I think they made target for about 5. I think last time I closed down my distribution and run over to the back of the GRB, and they're still a couple of them are still there. So I'll check with Jim, and I'll send him an email and ask him, hey, can you tell everybody when they need to be there?
Yeah, it's a little easier
Yeah,
this year with only 4 of us.
yeah. I'll also see if I mean the parking that I normally handle for you guys riding on those things is still up in the air, but I do have at least a pass to get you guys parked at parking lot B. We'll see if we can improve on that.
Okay, parking lot B's, that's where we normally pick up our package, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
And I'm supposed to pick up a load of things on Sunday, and I'm anticipating if I have any parking passes and the likes, it should be included in what I pick up this Sunday. So if I have that, I'll work at getting I'll have that information available, and so you may have to pass by parking lot B or some place that we can do a handoff Sunday morning.
okay. So it's 4 o'clock in the morning for parking lot B?
Yeah, I'll probably be out there for us just to see. Um, Details to follow.
Okay, and we're gonna get that usual email where we print off that silly piece of paper so we don't get shot trying to get in.
Well, I'm gonna send you a pass where it's a no shot zone pass.
Okay,
It's and so it's supposed to let you park in parking lot B or C.
okay,
But I'm anticipating when they close the registration that overall email, they'll push all that out to all the volunteers. But that they haven't closed registration down, so the meter's still running.
okay, all right. So we're just gonna be riding in the vehicles, monitoring the APRS and talking to Dale only when we need to then.
Yeah, I mean, we may have to figure out what it is that we want to do. Like I said, it's one of these roles, and I forgot you may be riding with Jim Kelly.
No, it's not Jim Kelly.
Okay.
I saw the list, it's somebody else.
Lee,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you talked about this, but is there a reason for us to actually meet if we're just going to be out on the course? Like I'm going to be with the Sector 1 captain. Is there any need for me to actually come down to parking lot B?
I don't think so. So I do have some people that are meeting their shadow people downtown, and so, but if you call your sector guy and say, "Hey, Bill, where do you want me to meet you?"
Right.
And so, sometimes, like in the past, they'll come pick you up at the parking lot downtown. So what I'll probably do is I will send out a parking pass to all the sector guys in case they have to go downtown. But in the past, other people have driven to their shadow person's house, or hey, meet at McDonald's or something. So ask them where they need to meet you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get a hold of her and fix that. So if I just meet, we used to meet at Wall and Washington. That's where I used to meet the sector captain. So,
Okay, yeah, wherever they want to meet, and
right.
yeah, sector one is in that little segment there. So I assure you, most of those guys, if they don't have to go downtown, they don't want to go downtown either.
I don't blame them a bit. So, okay, that's what I need to find out. Thank you, sir.
And Lee, I have a similar question. This is John, KD5U.
Yes, sir.
You've got me assigned to the final approach team, I-45 and last aid station. Do I need to go straight there, or do I need to go downtown to meet you guys in the morning at 4?
You might be able to park somewhere down there. I mean, they'll have police cars and stuff like that. You may have to come downtown because on assignments like yours where you wind up having to park close to the course, I have some tags that I give to people that are, put it this way, in precarious positions. I don't need to have your car towed or something, and so it's
Right.
it's an off course access that you can put on your car, and people recognize that you're one of the support people. So I haven't got those tags yet, and so
Okay.
like I said, there's an incredible amount of minutia and detail that I've got to slosh through yet that deal with the assignments and all the support.
Okay.
But
All right. I'll stay tuned, and I'm happy to come down at 4 a.m. and meet you there. That's no problem. So I just trying to understand it.
no, I appreciate the questions. It's a good mental reminder for me too. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I think the 10 minutes has expired, so let us pick up where we're going. So anyway, we're talking about parking lot B, and we talked a little bit about that. And so there are some passes for the rear of GRB and other provisions. And so, for instance, some of the net control operators, I do have a ramp pass. I know we have parked on the ramp in the past. That it enables to get equipment into the building a lot easier than trying to get through the first floor. So anyway, those are there. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen any documentation because it hasn't been published, but from my understanding is that we're up on balcony D at the Lamar balcony. We've been there for several years, and I've got a few folks, some pictures in a few minutes that shows that. And the Unified Command Center, the UCC, is at the Office of Emergency Management. It started off years ago in a trailer outside the north end of the building. It migrated to the south end of the building for a number of years, and it was 3 or 4 different agencies, emergency response vans, and then they got into a bigger van. And then at one edition of the UCC, they moved it to the worst possible place in the GRB to get any radio signals in or out. So it was there for 4 or 5 years. And in 2020, for the first time, they moved it to the Office of Emergency Management, where the city of Houston has their basically incident command set up permanently. And so we're a guest there. All the cameras and so forth and all the other support equipment is already in place. And so they were hauling and setting up temporary things. For instance, when it was at the GRB, it actually redirected, set up a 911 answer position. And so they were actually routing all 911 calls that was inside the 610 loop into the GRB to be dispatched. So this way they can still maintain 911 operations at their normal dispatch center on North Shepherd. So that's kind of the evolution of the UCC for that. So anyway, this is the old diagram where it showed you how to catch parking in parking lot B and C, where the buses would come, where they would drop you off. This diagram has not been published this year, so it could happen this way. I'm expecting it to happen this way, but it hasn't been published. So anyway, the GRB and race officials and all that will do special handling to do that. This is the the race crew instructions that was associated with that graphic that basically showed the where to park and what you needed, and how to walk to the GRB, and the schedule for the shuttle buses. This is the email that you should get. It's a certification, a confirmation that says you really are. And so what I will say is that when you get this printed out, throw it on your dash, bring it with you. You can put it on your phone, but print it out on a piece of paper, and that goes a lot to get you credibility as far as for being an actual participant, because this is an official, quote unquote, official document from the marathon committee. And so it'll basically have a barcode with your name and the shifts that you're working. And again, they're not handing out T-shirts or jackets or anything like that. So this is one from 2020. I have no idea what this year's going to look like or anything. But anyway, this is generally your ticket to get into the volunteer parking lot. I've got a different one that I will send to people that needs to get there. There's some parking that has generally been available behind the GRB up underneath 59. Those are commodities, and if you can get there at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can get a pretty good spot. After about 5 o'clock, it's kind of like finding a parking spot at a major sporting event here in town. The tag that you see is probably the 2020 hanging tag, or the 2019 hanging tag for GRB parking. So these are the ones I have not gotten this year. This is the one I might get on Sunday. So people like Mike and we'll if we can get one of those, they can then either jump in a car, or you get at least have one car that can go down to or try to get all the cars to go down and park near the trucks that they're trying to load equipment on. This is the off-course access that I had mentioned before. And in the past, when I had people leave like Water Station 2 and go up to a different assignment, you needed this thing where they would let you get past some perimeter barricades. It is also good, like I mentioned earlier. I've lost a gentleman for the assignment underneath I-45, where you might park your car up on a curb or something like that. It lets him know that you're a vehicle that needs to be there. This is the layout of the George R. Brown Forest. It really hasn't changed from previous years. It's the same generic layout, and so as far as I know, there's not a big change from operations. This is an old diagram. It shows kind of where we are. And anyway, we're on the Lamar balcony. Several years ago, we managed to somehow shut down the Wi-Fi link to the start line or finish line. And so all their instrumentations for reading chips and all that went away. And so anyway, it turned out lots of fingers got pointed at hams. And so anyway, what you'll see when you get there, and I know I've touched base with Rick, and I know I've talked a little bit with Walter. There's a data connection and a Wi-Fi link of some sort that goes up to the finish line and perhaps the start lines. And so any external antennas and all that, try to keep it well away from anything that looks like a Wi-Fi link. And please run low power. We're a half mile away or less than a half mile, and we have line of sight to the repeaters. Both of the major repeaters are all the major repeaters. So you can probably do it with milliwatts, and so 5 watts on a transceiver with an external antenna is probably more than sufficient. So just be judicious. I know the guys there that are experienced with that, but just be just a reminder that don't set it up. And I'll give Walter, and I'll send an email out to Walter and Rick Broussard to coordinate with the technology manager. And so if there's any questions about what to plug into, where to plug in for Wi-Fi or data, to do it, where we don't do anything like shut down the finish line again. This is what it looks like from Balcony D. This is Avenue of the Americas, and so you can see there's lots of stuff that's there. This is from probably 2019, so it's fairly open. But you see the runners, the people walking on that one. That's the runners that are coming in. That's or I'm sorry, the open way. That's the public walkway there. But you see this curved fence. That's where the runners will actually come in and go into the GRB. So they've got different levels of fencing and security fencing to keep general public and running and race officials and all that separated. This was the critical thing. We're at the Lamar balcony, and Starbucks coffee is there. Hopefully we won't have the situation that we've had in the past, that the credential they gave us 1 year, you could get out to Starbucks, but they wouldn't let you back in. So you had to go to the third floor, ride the elevator, and then go back down the elevator and come through the back door. But anyway, hams are innovative. They generally can figure out how to make things work. There you go. Mike is standing with a couple of the guys. See Paul. Rich Accord is the guy in the green shirt that year. And so this is the long table with the various operators that are set up along the way and separated enough for acoustical separation. One of the antenna installations, you see the coax running, and the antenna is attached to the railing. The railing overhead, we had a lot consternation about interference or sucking up signals, and for the most part, that's all fiberglass. We had at the time I put these first together, we have a new neighbor, so they've got a new Marriott hotel, and they've got a couple of new buildings that have blocked the direct line of sight to where the repeater is, but we can still get around it. This is a picture of Balcony D from the Sky Bridge to the Hilton. And so anyway, those I took those pictures back in 2016, 2017. So anyway, it's evolved. The trees have gotten much bigger than what's seen here. In fact, part of the problem with the link to the line, I pointed out and did a calculation that they had like 30 dB worth of attenuation from the trees because it was wet that day when they set up the link. It was dry when it was a rainy day, so all those leaves that were still on the trees got there, and it just zapped the 5.8 gigahertz microwave shot. So I was explaining to them that somebody put a 30 dB attenuator in their signal path, and that's probably why the link failed. It dried up a little bit. The wind came through, the front came through, and it dried out the leaves, and voila, all of a sudden the link started working again. But just told them they needed to do a little bit better link budget design on their systems. Chevron Neighborhood, again, these are some old pictures. I have not gone down there taking some new ones, but you see the Hilton Hotel, and the finish line is through the trees. So if you take a look at our perch on the Balcony D, these trees now are about twice as tall. So there's lots of microwave attenuation there. Again, just some views of downtown. I've got updates to the manual. I typically have published an information manual on net operations and the whole thing. I have not done that this year. That's not going to happen. So there's just too many changes. They shuffled more than almost a half of the race officials are new, are shuffled around. They've changed roles. They've dropped people. We've changed functions, and so most of the manual is not applicable. So I have not published that this year. The frequency plans, we published the PL tones. The one thing that I do want to point out is that the PL tone for the talk in and the 14700, the outbound PL tone is different than the inbound PL tone. So you need to send 103.5 as a PL tone to get the repeater to talk at all, to listen to you. But when the repeater repeats, it is going to send out a PL tone of 127.3. Now, the reason for that is that after agonizing for months, they found out that a repeater in Mexico is swapped the input and output frequencies, and it also had a tone of 103.5. So under different propagation conditions, the Houston repeater would come up, this one would come up and hear it and repeat back on 105. And so what you did, you had basically a multi-thousand mile radio echo chamber, and it just sat there and just did its thing, making echo and grungy noises all night long. So anyway, they've changed it to prevent that. I know on some of the older handhelds I've gotten feedback that's difficulty, but it's generally not a problem. You don't have to run CTCSS or squelch both ways unless you're downtown. Downtown, it's helpful not to hear any of the commotion that may overload your handheld. But I would ask people to program all the channels in, all the different frequencies, and is that the incident that I mentioned earlier about the car coming off Kirby and killing people, and if we have to go to different frequencies and all, it's like any event, having all the frequencies that's designated, programmed ahead of time, where you simply rotate the knob or push the button and go to the channel, is better than trying to fat finger frequencies and PL tones on a street corner somewhere. So anyway, if I will ask you to get that little task done ahead of the event, and just have them kind of all bunched together on your channel assignments on your radio. I mentioned about I've emailed the frequency plan a couple times to everybody, and so I have not updated the operations manual. It's like I said, it's just there's just a lack of information, and too much of it has changed in the last week. We do have CoreSat tracking. Peter has done an excellent job. Peter Belbin has done an excellent job of integrating APRS, ham cell phones, commercial trackers, and other things. And I'll ask Peter to explain. There's a link that's available. Vehicles this year. I'm in the process of moving the last two people off for a couple reasons. One of them, with the Omicron virus going about, having somebody riding on a closed vehicle with strangers, didn't seem to be quite appropriate. So moving them to a SAG stop assignment, which is generally in the open, that they can sit in the open, they can sit in their vehicles. And so I'm just for safety, and plus with all the other, we've had diminished value that we've added there, and the whole parking and situation, and there's a lot of information that's undefined. And so anyway, I'm trying to keep PAMs into places that are well defined, and there isn't any confusion at 5 o'clock in the morning when everything is beginning to get closed down. So anyway. We won't be riding any of the SAG buses or vans this year. I mentioned that the lead pack, the function that we provide there, is being redeveloped. So anyway, there is a backup emergency net operator at Transtar. I guess most of the time, he will be just doing cleanup work at Transtar and listening, but. I put him there because one of the other scenarios they had that they had done is for scenario planning on the tabletop. That one year we were in balcony E, and so the scenario that year was that some guy, ran a van full of explosive and blew it up, and basically killed all the operators at balcony E. And so it's like, okay, what do you do? I mean, I got 100 guys sitting out on the course. So anyway, we did kind of prop up a emergency net control operator at Transtar. just in case we've got to evacuate everybody from GRB or something. There's a presence of somebody there to pick up some pieces. If we do have to evacuate GRB or something other catastrophic happens. This is the map for the 2020, and so I mentioned earlier, but you can see that the bus stops are the little brown symbols, and the red pluses are those aid stations. And so the fun thing that used to happen was that a guy would decide he was tired, couldn't run anymore at a water stop after getting some refreshments or something. And so the first thing we managed to have to do is tell him, you got to walk another half mile or a mile to get to the Sag stop. Or, even the Sag stops and medical stations were relatively co-located. And so anyway, it seemed to be kind of an awkward thing. This year, what they've done, I mentioned earlier that everything's aligned. So you've got water stations, you've got Sag stops, you've got the medical stations, all essentially aligned, where they may be spread out over 3 blocks or so, but the Sag and the medical is going to be co-located. When I say co-located, one of them may be in the middle of the street, the other one may be on the side street, but essentially they're within 50 or 60 feet of each other. So anyway, they've realigned that, and it makes a lot of sense from a net control point of view, because what was the difficulty in the past, you'd have refueling station number 17, but then you'd have Sag stop 9. And so now, refueling station is at 17 is at Sag stop 17. Refueling station 5 is at Sag stop 5, at medical station 5. So all of these have been aligned now. They may be a block or so apart, but nonetheless, they're essentially co-located. The Unified Command Center is located at the Houston Office of Emergency Management. This is the second time we place it there. That's located on North Shepherd, north about 3 miles north of the North Loop. That location is the HF Houston Fire Department, Police Department, and SAG is all dispatched in that one room. So they've got contract ambulances. They've got about 20 to 30 contract ambulances that's spread around the route. They've got Houston Fire Department ambulances. So all of this is dispatched from there. The hams I mentioned earlier, Earl Pack and Ben Gillis will be there to situation to pass any type of emergency traffic into the authorities. We utilize the City of Houston assets. It is their standard is their standing unified command center, and so anytime there's an incident that happens, they staff it. So everybody's got all their workstations and so forth pre-assigned. Across the hall from where we are is the E911, 311, and HPD, HFD dispatch centers. So it's all that's fairly centrally located. It can support, it's actually about 90 work task desk, and they've got curved screens, they've got dedicated computers. It has built-in projectors that's got switchable displays from different sources, so they can actually pull up and display almost anybody's workstation on an overhead. This is what it looks like. These are some pictures at a non-busy time, and so you see the wall of visual displays that's up there. And I've got a ham room here with a pointing arrow pointing to the closet. So on the other side of the column, on the back side of that column, is where the ham room used to be, but it got pushed aside. So the all the radio equipment for the northeast sector of Harris County, or the city system, is in that closet, and the hams are adjacent to that. So that's basically a fourth of the city's communication is right off this room for all the radio systems. So anyway, that's where the hams are. Peter and another ham will be, it's off the south side of this, towards the back of this room from where I've taken this picture, or this picture was taken. They'll be sitting out in the open with the transportation people, adjacent to the medical people, and the people that's managing the course, some of the course equipment. A guy named Jacobs that's sitting there will be, and he'll pass information that comes in from the SAGNet to those folks. This is what the ham station at the Houston Office of Emergency Management looks like. These pictures are probably almost 3 years old now, but they essentially have an ICOM 7000 HF, VHF, UHF, an ICOM 2720 dual band, and an Astron power supply, and 2 coax antennas. And it looks like only one of the coax antennas actually are operational. We were trying to address that, and we're still trying to address that for the long term. You know, the reason they moved it to there was to improve physical layout, and in the UCC and GRB was difficult for all the city officials. They spent a lot of money moving temporary resources there, and so anyway, this the bandwidth that the Marathon had to rent from the GRB is expensive, and they've got multi-gigabit connections to the command center, so the whole network setup and the linkage for that is greatly improved from compared to the GRB. However, having said that, at the GRB you could plug your stuff in, and I mean that was a rent by the day network. This network, they don't want anybody to plug it in any personal computers. They gave a Wi-Fi, and so the Wi-Fi I think is just your typical network where they'll dump you out onto the internet. But anyway, you can't plug any USB sticks into any of the computers, and you can't modify any of their computers. So, you know, it's perhaps difficult for hams not to comply with all this, but this is one of the constraints that we deal with in operating out of the UCC. So the Y spots for that we normally carry in our pockets, perhaps we can't fire up. We can temporarily substitute our ham radios for any radios that's in the room and so forth, so that's okay. And so anyway, there's some operational challenges. I know we're trying to work that out. That's one of the things that have gotten hammered with all the COVID activities, is the coordination of how to do that. That's still an outstanding item that we've got to resolve. But we essentially, to prop up Peter's operation, we've got to run some cables and stuff. So anyway, the ham laptops and tools are permitted. That's one of the things I try to do is say, hey, hams are going to haul tools, and typically you've got to pass through a metal detector, and all of us have got enough junk that we'll fail the test. Your typical airline entry security test will fail miserably, and so we've tried to make special provisions for that where we can get things around there. But I was reminded that we're in a room that's got probably 80 guys that are carrying sidearms, so we're probably a low risk. Anyway, the Google Docs, there's some stuff that will pop up on the Google Docs that deal with some things, but the logging sheets are there, and Paul, you'll see some information there. Plus, I can send you a side copy. We talked about most of this. It talks about the tactical repeaters, and so anyway, this was the initial layout that showed where people are. And again, this was a discussion point. We shuffle things around, but essentially the hams in here is where basically in the back corner of this large room. The radio room if you take a look at the radio room where this dashed line box is, that's the approximate location of the radio room. This was kind of what I tried to analyze what the information flow was from the different things that hams do, and I showed the GRB and that. So, I've got basically the net control GRB is CourseNet, APRS timing, SAGNet backup, and at the unified command, I've got the SAGNet tactical and asset tracking. And so Peter's there, and so the asset tracking and all that's basically out of there. They interface with the SAG hams, the GET supervisor, which is dealing with the SAG dispatch. There's the emergency interface. These are the Earl and the Ben that can pass traffic to medical dispatch supervisors, public safety, Metro, Public Works, the likes. And we're talking to the course officials, lead vehicles, aid stations, refueling ham operators, all that is coming in there. And the medicals people are talking with the P25 radios or even text messaging to the bike medics, aid stations, and the GRB medical. They've got a field hospital with 100 hospital beds at the GRB. And in the past, they've actually set up a medical field hospital in the Memorial Park. They do not have that this year. I think perhaps the COVID has taken its toll on that. But in the past, there was actually a full medical field hospital in Memorial Park, and that's not there this year. So this is the incident command. They've got different levels, where it's operational issues, race disruption, course disruption, and event evacuation. And so there's some response that goes through and the protocols that's associated with that. There's an alert system that typically deals with event conditions, and these are also associated with some of the flagging that they use for runners to appraise them of weather conditions and conditions for them. That's whether it's dangerous and so forth. There's these are the numbers for the unified command, the 2 telephone numbers, and these are the P25 channels. They're special channels that's part of the radio defined talk group structure for Harris County and the city of Houston. And so these are channels that deal and that support with the essentially public service events like this. There's an emergency procedure that has not been updated this year, but it hadn't been updated. It's been the same static display from previous years, so I'll republish this. And so they've got evacuation points. That's not a published list, but they've got lists that they can perhaps house several hundred to several thousand runners along the course. So if we come under lightning conditions, or if there's some sort of dangerous condition that can route people, and so they'll be led out of the incident command and Houston response. So you have police officers, the sector captains, and what we'll do is probably get hams along the way to start advising people to go to these places. So you'll see a massive, basically, if you have something like this, you'll start seeing the incident command systems get stood up and activated, and we'll start going to tactical operations. So anyway, that's kind of that overview. So what I would like to do is I'm going to quit sharing. Peter, are you in a place that Jeremy, can you also let Peter Belbin share? He's going to give us a little tour of this tracking system that's available, which would be very useful for guys shadowing the sector captains, and it could possibly be useful for people that's along the course.
Yeah, let me make him a co-host real quick. All right, he's a co-host and he can share.
Alrighty. You guys can hear me and see the map I'm sharing, I presume?
Yes.
Okay, so this is basically the same map as what's available when you go and look at the assignments web page, www.hmhams.org/assignments. And embedded in there is a map. If you click on the link, you'll get the web map in its own window. And one of the things that map has available is a layer called NextRad, which is what I'm able to show you here, which we were just talking about the weather. And yeah, we've got some weather activity going on around Houston right now. And this functionality can be useful if we have any kind of weather issue during the event, to be able to get visibility of where the weather is, which way it's going, and is it going to be an impact to the event. But that's selectable, right? So the main thing is when you come into the map, you'll probably see it initially appear somewhat like this. If you follow the link from the assignments page, some of the layers will be selected. If you're using a computer, you'll be able to point at these buttons over here, and they will tell you, if you point long enough, kind of what they are about. And the main one that you'll be interested in is this layer selection panel. Over on the right-hand side, you have these various base layers. And my personal favorite is OSM POS2, because when you enable some of these layers, they really stand out from the background. But depending on what you need, OSM Toner can be a good choice, because it shows the street names in a very readable, high contrast kind of way. The OSM POS2, the street names kind of disappear more into the background. So the layers that everyone would have access to is the sectors. And if you point at the sector portion, you'll actually have a label there. So when you're hearing things on the radio and they say, oh, this is something happening in sector 3, you can find out which sector that actually is on the map. The other things you can enable are distance markers. So if somebody's saying, hey, we've got something happening at the 34K distance, or the full marathon 21 mile, or whatever the distance is, should be pretty easy to get in the right ballpark. Of course, we are more interested in the aid stations, and that's what they look like. If you look here, it's also got a little status indication. I'll be updating those statuses hopefully during the event. And of course, we have the water stations also, which are, in most cases, they're very close to an aid station, right? So if you're looking for a particular water station, it can be helpful. But personally, I typically am mostly interested in the aid stations. There is another layer here called Miscellaneous, and it will enable things like some helpful information about where the GRB is.
And a few parking lots.
Yeah, parking lots are over here. We've got this line here showing where the caravan of the the lead pack vehicles typically will go and get into position ahead of the starting line, right? The lead pack vehicles will be on the course ahead of the start line because, yeah, they need to be out in front. Typically, the drop-off point for SAG has been somewhere down around here. This year, we're not so concerned about that, but usually just inside here is the side entrance door to the main medical facility. So if there are people that are being dropped off at medical, that's usually where they would get dropped off. There is also a layer here for the 5K run on Saturday, and just out of convenience, the map can actually be rotated to make it a little bit easier to see. And that's basically what everybody has access to. It's really so that you can see statically where the resources are on the course. One of the things that you may find useful is that when you're trying to get to the course, or let's say you're thinking about, driving the course.
This one may be very useful for sector shadows.
Right. So this one, on this question pane, there are two useful things here. There's this mobile map mode and rotate following. So rotate following, the idea here is that, like, normally you would see this map in a north up kind of mode. Rotate following, and when you use that in conjunction with the mobile map mode, it will make forward be up. So if you're progressing, along one of these roads, the forward direction will be up, and then you'll be able to see relative to where you are all the resources on the course. So mobile map mode, if you enable that, it will turn your phone into somewhat of a navigation tool, right? It'll ask you for permission to use your location provider, the GPS device on your phone. If you give it permission, you'll see a blue dot appear on your phone. And as you move around, the map will be repositioned so that that dot is your location and the map is moving around you. So again, this could be really helpful if you're not sure where you are and you want to see where you are in relation to all the different resources on the event. You'll be able to do that using the mobile map mode. I do want to bracket this by saying if you enable mobile map mode and you enable rotate following, it's going to use up a reasonable chunk of your battery drawer, your power drawer for your mobile device, because it's demanding that the map be rotated, and that takes graphics processor capability, and that all uses battery at an accelerated rate. So if you intend to use that for a long period of time, I highly suggest you have a way to power your device while you're in your vehicle. I would not use this ad nauseum without some sort of external power supply. Now for the people like Shadows, the lead pack, any mobile resource, it makes a lot of sense to install the TrackR app and configure it on your phone so that you are able to report where your location is to this map so that you'll be visible on the map during the event. This map, do you want me to show the APRS side of it?
Sure, you're welcome to do that.
Okay. Okay, so this map does combine all sorts of details. Oh, one other thing I probably should mention, if you point at these mile marker things, you will be treated with a little bit of imagery that they are using to describe where these mile marker things are actually located. So this map combines APRS, it combines commercial trackers, it combines the mobile phone app, beacon reports. It combines, a couple of other things on here as well. They all show up on the map in a unified kind of way, and so when you're during the events and you have your TrackR app installed and running, you'll be visible via one of these assigned groups. So the sector captains, the shadows, the lead pack, those are really the people who we would want to have the TrackR app installed, configured, and running for the entire duration of your involvement in the event so that we know where you are. So right now, for example, we have some people down here.
Oh,
Now, let me show you the effect.
I see Rick Broussard's com
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So this map has a lot of resources on it. And by zooming in, we're just looking at some of them. The trackers button is the big switch, right? If that's not on, nothing's going to show up. That's a tracked resource. But then once you enable, and if you don't have any of these selected, you're going to see everything. But as soon as you enable one of these groups, now you're restricting it just to the resources that are inside that group or any of the other groups that you enable. So this is how you filter out the stuff that's superfluous to your scope of interest. And yeah, so that's Rick Broussard's location at the moment. So the ability to log in is going to be provided to the people that need it. For those people that do need it, like some of the things that you can do are you can click on here and you can ask the map to follow that resource, which means their tactical ID will be shown up here on the top right-hand corner with a checkbox. If you want to stop following that resource, you can click on the checkbox. The other thing you can do is ask the map to show the speed that they're moving at. So what this will do is it'll take maybe 3 of the position report speed values and average them together. And it'll put an at and whatever the speed is after the call sign label. So that as they're moving around on the map, you can get an idea of what speed they're traveling at. This would be probably really useful for people in the lead pack to be able to get an idea of how fast the vehicles are moving, so that, for example, the lead police vehicle that's actually supposed to be even further ahead than the pacing vehicles has an idea of how fast the pacing vehicles are moving, so that they in turn can make sure that they're going about the same speed as the fastest of the pace vehicles, right? So this may be a useful capability for that scenario. So yeah, there's going to be all sorts of resources on here. If you want to know those pace vehicles and the person trailing the last runner, they will be in the course group. So the course group, I imagine, will be the one group that most people will want to know where are they, all right? Where is the front of the event and where is the back of the event? That's in the course group. I think that's pretty much it. If what you can do is you can click on the station SS for station search. And if you click in here in the text box, it will update the list of the stations, and then you can click on the resource button and the map will reposition to show you that resource in the middle of the map. And it's also got some other information here. You can filter it a bit so that only the ones that are shown as having a speed are shown in the list. And you can also enable this checkbox so that when you click on the resource, that resource also becomes the resource that your map is following. Right, so those are some nice ways of not having to look at the map and try and find a particular resource. You can come in here. You can also type some of the call sign or the tactical ID, and again, it will filter down that list to narrow down the choices that are available. If you are unfamiliar with the area, you can use this spyglass kind of thing. Oops. And if you can get the street name reasonably precise, you can, within the viewing area of the map, you'll be able to type in the name of the street or intersection, like Westheimer Road. And there'll be a number of, if you get the name of the street matching up correctly, you'll have these various options, and each of them you can click on and the map will be repositioned to, the description. And this list is kind of restricted to what you're looking at. So if you zoom out, you're going to have more hits.
Oh, don't do that, man. 40 miles of road.
Yeah, so you get more hits, the further out you are zoomed than if you're more tightly zoomed in, right? So anyway, that's a useful capability for helping figure out where people are talking about. So, this is probably the view that I would personally be most interested in. Other people are going to be interested in different things, but the course is probably the group that most people will be interested in. We will have ambulances, shadows, SAG vehicles. There is a group called the race guard or the pace runners. They should be in here on this race guard group. And I will have the various APRS resources in their respective group here that we know about for the event. Now,
Behind your blue box is actually the men's pace vehicle. You see it up if you scoot up a little bit to the right. Where it was there.
oh,
Yeah, M pace.
yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a tracker that Mike Nault had set up.
Yeah, yeah. So this map, as I mentioned earlier, it integrates data from APRS, the TrackR app, which is a free download. The amount of data that it transfers per position update is very small. If you went to a web page or some online resource that downloaded a bunch of photos, images, you've probably already downloaded more data in those images than what the TrackR app is going to do for the whole event, right? It doesn't transfer a whole lot of data. But the thing about it is the technology of APRS, typically you might have that programmed to report a position every minute if it's more frequent, or every couple of minutes, or even slower, just depending on what your preferences are. And as you get a lot of APRS resources reporting their position, they're all competing on the same frequency for a very small number of APRS repeaters and or network interfacing stations, iGates. So the rate of update from APRS is very slow. In comparison, the TrackR app is using commercial cellular technology, which, yes, if we have a problem with our cellular services, it will be impacted, which is where APRS does have a place. But with the TrackR app, I'm actually asking the lead pack people to beacon their position once every second, so that we will have very high degree of accuracy and good awareness of where all of those lead runners are. So this is something that would not be possible with APRS, with the infrastructure that it uses, but it's totally possible using the cellular technology, and combining all of those on the one map has a lot of utility.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah. So anyway, this is again, it's a tool that I think helps us provide information, particularly like for shadows. That their basic concern is, how much more time do I have before the first runners come through, and how long do I got to keep everybody in place before the last runner comes through, and so that's some information I think that helps you share your stuff.
Okay.
Question, will the track car information be publicized to what we need to put in track car so we can use it?
Yes.
That is something I haven't sent out. When he mentioned that, it's like I had sent out some information on that. I'll have to resurrect that, but I can send that out to everybody. When I send out this slide pack, I'll make sure that the instructions for track car gets included.
The important thing about the instructions for the Tracker app is that I'm using the phone number that you registered with to volunteer for, helping with the event as the device ID, and it needs to be entered with dashes. So it's 3 digits, then a dash, like a minus sign, 3 more digits, the minus sign, and then the last 4 digits as the tracking device ID. Don't put your ham radio call sign or your neighbor's phone number in there. It won't work, right? Because I configure the system with the data that was used in the registrations.
All right. So I had a question from the chat that someone had, and we have some questions. But the first one that I saw in the chat was, do we need to call in some of the lead runners? The lead runners, not so much. The wheelchair guys, they may or may not have a tracker on them. They've got some that have got a reputation of being fast, and they may have trackers. But if there's a guy there that they're not aware of and is leading the pack, then yeah, it would be good. But the fact that they've got 30 wheelchairs that will be interspersed all throughout there, so the first wheelchair that you see zinging by, you might want to let know that, hey, water stop number 3.5 just saw the lead, wheeler go by, and like I said, that person may or may not have some sort of tracker or a bike person shadowing him with a tracker. So again, that's a lot of information that I don't have this year that I normally would have seen in the past. Yeah, and so anyway, I'll try to get that information out when we send the slide pack out. Anyone else has any other questions?
I just pulled up the map link from the page that you sent out, and I'm not seeing under the options you had the trackers, and I'm a shadow for Sector 2, so that's something that I'm very interested in being able to monitor, to be able to provide that information. Is there something special that I need to do to be able to see the trackers that I missed? All I see is aid stations, water stations, miscellaneous, and 5K.
Yeah, there's when you point to a little question mark on that screen, there's 2 pieces of information I'll send you that'll enable that to happen.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's just trying to, like I say, flange together a lot of information here at the last minute, and so Peter was able to get some of that together here recently, so it's like, okay, let's share that and pass that information, make it a little bit more widely available.
Yeah, it's awesome, and the quote from the sector captain was actually my sector captain, so I think that's going to help me provide a lot of the information that he's looking for sure. So.
Oh yeah, no, I knew it was your sector captain, and it's like, yes, Fujio, yes. So anyway, he's an enthusiastic person, and so you'll enjoy working with him. So the sector captains generally are a hoot, so it ought to be fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it, but yeah, all the information he was expecting was a bit daunting. So seeing this map, it's like, all right, that's how I'm going to be able to provide all that information that he's looking for. So yeah, super excited about that.
You're the downtown sector captain?
I'm Sector 2, so just outside of downtown.
Okay, you're outbound.
Yeah.
What it happens is the last few water stop, refueling stops coming into downtown is the ones I need to hear from to get the wheelchair advanced, because finish line needs to set up for their coming in, and they usually get at least a little bit of warning for the first male, first female on full and half. But it's good that we have a little backup on that. So basically, I guess we're not going to track them throughout the race. We only need to have them coming into downtown Lee. Is that right on the first run?
No. In fact, if we know if we can get a report on the lead wheelchair all throughout the course, that would be good. And the medical station. I know it's not normal medical traffic, but I've got some places where at the med station, Sag pickup points, they'll have guys there, so it may be worthwhile for them to call in on the Sag frequencies that, hey, a wheelchair guy just passed, the first wheelchair guy just passed, and Rick will be monitoring, or Lee will be monitoring the Sag frequency down there, and so I'm sure that he could also pass that information, but that'll help in case there's no visual indication on the map. That'll help at least you're knowing that, and also we can pass that information over to the approach where we're going to notify the finish line guys.
Hey, Lee.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Gus here. Do you need someone like myself who's on foot downtown to turn on tracker? I don't have APRS on my radio, so I'd be using tracker on the phone.
Yeah, I think you're shadowing the downtown guy, and there's been a lot of pushback from the race officials for people knowing where they are, and generally what I've told them is that we can perhaps have the ham track, and that way where the ham is generally where the other person is, but not necessarily. So anyway, that seemed to be a better solution for tracking all the individuals. But yeah, you're with the West Side tracker, West Side downtown sector, Catherine?
East. Is it East? Yeah, Catherine.
Okay, yeah.
So then, what would be the optimal setting there for the tracker? Because I'm walking up and down a 5-block area there with her.
Yeah, I don't think we need you every second. My guess, you'll be relatively static, so I don't know, Peter's going to shoot me, but probably every 30 seconds to a minute is probably fine.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, what I'd say is in the information that Lee's going to send out, I'll work with Lee to come up with some suggested settings that would be more appropriate for resources that are not constantly ones that we're interested in the high frequency updates.
Yeah, he's gonna be miles away from a charger.
Right.
Yeah. I'd say every 30 seconds is probably decent for that kind of situation.
Okay.
I just posted in the chat that if you guys need a battery charger for your phone or something, the one that I just posted is only $30, and it's a 30,000 milliamp. So that'll charge your phone 15 times. So, and it's lightweight to carry. I've got one myself. So if you want something to make sure your battery's not going to die while you're out and about, that's a good option.
Okay, thanks. Other questions? Any questions from the people who are participating for the very first time?
I'll raise my hand. So I'm Jeff Miller. This is the first time participating. So I'm a little bit confused on the map. So just kind of bear with me. This is very specific to me. So apologize for all 39 other people on the call. But I'm not sure. Am I supposed to go to, I'm supposed to be the refueling station, but I see two of them. There's 18.5G and 18.5W, and I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to go to. So apologize. Thanks for accepting me this year to volunteer, but I'm a little retarded starting out, obviously.
No, you're not. No, and so you are so lucky. You get to go to both of them. So the G designation, and I'm from the, took a while for me to sort that out. So the G means Gatorade.
Oh, okay.
So the stop that has G are the runners can get a slurp of Gatorade. The W is just pure water, and so anyway, they'll be and so you may go talk to one. They'll probably have the same. They have the same refueling station captain. So there's a captain that's in charge of the refueling stations, and so the refueling captain that's organizationally nestles up underneath the sector captain, that nestles up underneath the course commissioner, that it nestles up under Mike Root. Essentially, he's in charge of, he or she will be in charge of the water stations, and included in that's the Gatorade stations. And so anyway, when you check with him, you can take a look at both. And so the main thing is he will probably be, he or she will be running around with their hair on fire. And they may have a radio, so you may get to staff the public safety radio and theirs. But the main thing, you'll hear maybe a call from one of the radio systems for that particular person, and they'll be busy listening. So the other thing is, I will say, is that on some of you may be near a place where they have hoopla. That isn't something we typically display on any of the ham stations, but some of the hoopla is different types of entertainment, and some of it could be like loud music. So if you have a headset or an earpiece, that would be very helpful to be able to get the ham audio squirting directly into your ear, as opposed to trying to listen to the speaker from your handheld. So if you have a headset or a speaker or earpiece, please wear that. One thing that you do not want to do is run on any of your equipment is Vox. That will get you and everybody else into trouble, I assure you. So make sure that the transmitter you'll use to push the talk button and not any type of Vox setting. Good, thank you. Anyone else, first timers or those who have slept since the last time we did this? Any questions?
I've got a question, Lee. You indicated in your schedule that there's a timing net for the 5K run. Is that new?
I don't think we do. That's probably a misstatement, Dale. I mean, there's no lead packs or anything like that. I mean, people will generally call in, hey, that the lead guy is at kilometer 3 type thing, but there's no formal timing net. That's I've had to do a lot of copying and pasting and moving stuff around, and I probably pasted too much.
Understand, no problem.
But I'll be happy to have you squatting at mile 2 or kilometer 2 or wherever I've got you posted for the 5K event.
Yeah, I understand, and I know where to park.
Okay. You've done this before.
A few times.
Yeah. When did you first start in the marathon? Which century?
Oh, I have no earthly idea. I'm old, so I forget these things.
Were you participating before Carl Hacker?
No. Hey, he was still in your position, I believe.
Okay.
Is there actually a need for those of us that are out at stations? I'm at station 24 to come in to the volunteer early in the morning if there's in fact nothing there?
No. In fact, I covered that early on. Is that no? If you're on the course, do not come downtown. There is no guarantee I have anything to give you other than a warm smile. and I mean, so it's really only the people that
credentials.
The shadows. I mean, like for instance, Mike Root said he's going to meet the police car in the back of the GRB, and then his shadow happens to be. I happen to know that his shadow happens to be staying in the same hotel he is. It's like maybe you guys don't have to go to the back of the GRB. You could have the police vehicle pick you up at the hotel. So there's some of that, and So that's generally people are all over the place, and so that's why you got to almost call and figure out where you're going to meet your person. But like I said, this whole planning session has been a challenge with all the COVID induced flack, and so we'll sort through this and we will be good. So anyway, thanks so everybody. If you're out on the course, don't plan to come downtown. I used to work for an oil company, so I'm appreciative that you're using the oil company's products. However, save your time and enjoy your cup of coffee in a more convenient spot.
Thank
And
you.
Lee, there was a question that came up about what time does someone need to be at their assigned location? Did you want to address that one again?
I do. Yeah, thank you for that. The road, generally plan on having the road closing at 6 o'clock. 6 to 6:30. So in some places it's even earlier than that. So, but generally they start closing the streets at 6 to 6:30. So you want to be in position prior to the road closures, and part of this map, shows that. So if you plan on being in your position by 6:15ish, 6:15ish, the ones closer in, it's probably more like 5:30. But if you're say south of 59, let me pull that map up. Let me go back and find it. Can people see this? So you can see like downtown, the red here is the closure. So they're closing downtown at 6:15. Yeah, it's an eye test. I'll resend this out to everybody. So 6:15, and back here is 7:15. But the more popular viewing places will be here, so there'll be traffic. So I would urge people to get to their locations between say 5:30 and 6 o'clock. Richard, you had a question?
Yeah, I want to find out. I want to make sure that I didn't miss it. The email with the frequencies.
I'd sent out an initial one, and there was a dead repeater in there. So when I sent out the announcement for this meeting, it should have been attached to that meeting. I can resend the frequency list out to everybody.
Yeah, if you could, because remember I didn't get the meeting.
Okay, I'll add the frequency list to this transmission. What I'll say, I will use most likely the website for the Houston Marathon, which allows me to make an attachment and make a brief email, and I'll blast out this presentation and the frequency list. And it's so be looking something from the Houston Marathon Committee rather than Lee Gaspard. It may say it's from me. I don't remember what I checked the box to say it's sent from me, but it may or may not show up in your inbox like that. Tom, you had a question in 5 PLO?
Yeah, I did. Can you hear me?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I had a quick question regarding, well, two questions actually. One on the SAG and MedStop 12.5.
Yes, sir.
On the map, it shows the closure time at 5:45, but everything else around it is 6:45. So I'm assuming that that's a typo.
That may not be a typo.
Okay.
You said the West Park. You said SAG stop 14.
13.
Okay, 13. Yeah, well, I think that's the West Park turnaround, and so they may close that part of the West Park down, and the other streets may be open until later.
Okay.
But yeah, I think what it is, they've actually got to set up. I don't know what they're setting up. They haven't published all that detail out, but in the past they've actually like set up bleachers, and they actually had one year Chick-fil-A was the sponsor, and I want to say they actually set up some sort of remote kitchen that they could serve samples. So I don't know what's happening at the West Park. It may be just a bunch of cones and blocking, but they may have to start keeping traffic out of off the interstate from going that direction. So it
Okay, not a
could be a
problem.
typo, but it may not.
I'll plan on being there early enough. But the next question I had was actually where to, and I apologize because this is my first year and I'm actually only been living here in Houston for a couple of years, so I'm not very familiar with the areas. But on the map where the icons are actually at, is that the location where you report to? Are those accurate locations? I'm just trying to figure out where I need to go to park to get to where I need to go. If that makes sense.
Give me just
Hey,
a
Lee, this is
second.
Armando. Can I answer that?
Sure. Yeah, Armando, please. You've operated
Okay,
there,
so that,
what, 10 years?
Well, yeah, actually, Armando, I believe I'm scheduled with you.
yeah, more or less about that time. There's a La Quinta, and in between that La Quinta and the office building, there's a parking lot. If you get there early enough, you can come straight down West Park and pull in there. That's where all the volunteers that are setting up the water and the Gatorade will park as well. And that's a really good place to park because you can get out of there even though the course is still locked down. There's a way of getting out by taking the feeder road, doing that U-turn and getting onto 59. So that's where I normally park. Thanks, guys.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks for that, Armando. And then one other quick question is the operations, the actual operations, I'm assuming are they done from the vehicle or are they not done from the vehicle on those stations?
A lot of times, well, Armando, you can probably answer that. Some of them may be vehicles, some of them may be handheld, but Armando, you want to chip in what your experience has been?
Yeah, typically I'm out and about, just walking back and forth, checking with the captain there, and going around the corner. If there's another person stationed there, we split duties, and one person down at the medical station, and depending on the weather, really, you should really think about hypothermia.
Yeah, so
but in the past, it's been warm enough; it's not an issue.
Yeah, this is a zoomed in version. So you say here's the La Quinta and the parking lot. This is the Sag stop, and there's a Sag stop, and so if you click here, you can see that it's Sag 12.5, and then the medical station is right there. So I've got you assigned there, so you can probably park your car or your chair, somewhere around here, and then the two water stations that Armando typically does. There's the Elite water station that's here on the corner. The typical regular runners won't stop there. The Elites actually have their own water bottles with their names, so they don't use glasses per se. And then the other water stop is going to be here. There may be another one missing on the map. So anyway, this is the map that the net control stations will have access to, and it shows basically all the resources. This is the planning map that the committee uses to place everything in. So it's got all the various resources and stuff along the way.
All right, perfect.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir, Paul.
The maps that you provided in the email were PNG files. You right-click, save the image. They're not real clear when you zoom in and print. Is there a way you can get the PDFs? Because I looked on the Marathon website, and I couldn't.
Okay, yeah, I can send you all that. Yeah, there's a dearth of information. I mean, it's usually they've got all that published, and yeah, I can send you all that, Paul.
Yeah, it's the PDFs.
Yeah, I've got the PDFs. I mean, the issue was I only got them about 2 days ago, 3 days ago. So
Gotcha.
things have been really slow. It's been tough. I was wondering, would I have enough information to actually make a presentation this morning? So it's been a challenge.
And thanks, Tom, for the FTA contact this morning.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey,
Okay,
Lee,
go ahead.
sorry. Lee, I'm just wondering on the map that the HM map, would it make sense? I'm currently not showing the SAG locations on that map. Should I add SAG locations to that so that people that are at the medical stations and or the water also have visibility of where the SAG stops are supposed to be?
Yeah, that might be a good, useful addition.
Because somebody may say, "Hey, which direction is the SAG stop?" Or they may want to wander over to the SAG station to sort of get an idea of number of people. Or so, would it be worth talking also about the sort of information that we might be looking to get reports on from these medical station people?
Sure. You had mentioned some, and I don't have those notes in front of me, but if you want to tick off the three major items that you were looking for.
Yeah, okay. So we were thinking about having the people assigned to the medical stations provide periodic reports, maybe every 30 minutes or so, an indication of how many people might be on cots receiving care at the medical station, how many people might be queued up waiting to receive care at the medical station. And also we were interested in how many people might be queued up waiting for transportation at the SAG stops. And if you're at one of these stations and suddenly the number goes from 0 people waiting up to 20 people waiting or whatever the number is, if it suddenly changes in a big way, you don't have to wait for the 30-minute reporting period. You can contact net control and say, hey, we've got a sudden increase in the number of people waiting for medical attention or SAG transportation. But we will keep a track of that information so that we can see trends and provide that information to the people at medical and others at Unified Command.
Yeah, the queue lengths are important because essentially one of the issues they have this year is it's been difficult to get medical people, and so some of those medical stops may be lightly staffed. They do have bike medics that could wheel over and provide some assistance, or even ambulances. But the fact that if you see suddenly there's 30 people queued up waiting to see some medical stuff, that's worthwhile radioing in to the net control at UCC on the SAG medical frequencies and saying, hey, Peter, the other station, I'm trying to forget his name, but
that'd be Jonathan.
Jonathan, I've suddenly got 20 people just stopped for some medical care at Med Station 20.25. So that situation awareness is some useful information that we could feed into the authorities.
Lee, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
John, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So you've got me assigned on last approach net at I-45 at the aid station, the last aid station. So do I have a dual role there, or do we have another ham assigned?
There is another ham that's assigned at the SAG stop, and so I sent you. I think I sent you a copy of both his assignment and yours in an email? Am I
I don't recall it, but I will look.
okay? Anyway, if but he should be there on the SAG frequency, and so you're welcome to visit and work. And if it's raining, that may be a better place to stand than out on the street somewhere, because it's a big umbrella. But anyway, and they may also have food or whatever there. So yeah, if you'll check in with that. But a lot of times, what I've done is send out emails grouping people that says here's your pair that you matched up. I have a husband and wife team that the wife is on, I think, the full marathon, and the husband is on the half marathon. And it sounds like they're miles apart, but the reality, they're right across the median from each other, because the two stations are there. So I've tried to group people that either has worked in the past or in clumps where I've taken pains not to put people out on the street by themselves. So I've tried to make sure that they're paired up with another ham somewhere. It's the old Boy Scout thing of always having your buddy. So
Okay, so you had me on ApproachNet at the last aid station. So do I need to monitor any of the activity at that aid station, or do we have a person there? Because
there'll be a person at the aid station, but you probably want to keep an ear out for Paul on the CourseNet, because on the CourseNet, so the approach frequency is a UHF frequency, and the CourseNet's a VHF. So you should be able to do that. When you start seeing the runners coming, you may want to just go to the approach frequency alone, and that way you're talking with each other. And so Mike Urich and Jeff Walter are typically the key people there, and I think there's another person that I've got assigned on the approach. And so what I would suggest doing is getting together. We'll try to get together, and you guys huddle. And what they are also telling me is that sometimes they use a frequency other than that, just a simplex frequency.
Sure. Okay.
So whatever that is, just make sure that Lee, who's trying to do something in the GRB on the balcony D, is hooked up. So, like I said, we've set up a structure, and sometimes we shim and file to make things work better.
Okay, I'll coordinate with Jeff on it. Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Bob Cook. I got a question, actually a couple questions, because 6.5 is where we start to see the first year runners start to have problems. And a couple years ago, if y'all remember, when it started out a little bit not cold, but not real cold, and then it got real cold as the race started. And we had an issue with an elite that stopped at the 6.5. How are we supposed to report an elite when they don't have a number on the front of their card? They've got a name, and we're not supposed to transmit names.
I would say, I don't know what else to do. I mean, that's their identifier. And you can say I got an elite runner down at this particular location, and they may ask you to call in on a phone number or something.
Okay, that'll work.
But or even text something. But yeah, when not that you'd ever see this, but elite runner Gaspard. That's very highly unlikely, but it's conceivable that there could be a badge like that.
I didn't know if they had a number on the back of their badge or something, because the placards I've always seen for the elites, they only have their name on the front. They don't have a number at all.
Yeah, they do.
The other issue is with the bike medics, because every year I watch this crowd of bike medics come blazing through the 6.5 stop, and they just keep going. And I don't know if it's possible, but can we suggest to the bike medics that maybe they ought to start stopping, pair off two bike medics, as they go through the course, instead of just this crowd of bike medics come blazing through at the start of the race, and then we have no bike medics because they're somewhere else on the course.
On that, I think, calling in to the SAGNet, or even if you're on the CourseNet, to call in to the CourseNet to relay to the SAGNet that you've got that situation that you need a bike medic at this location. Unfortunately, they've got a new medical director this year, and I have had no insight into the medical team planning, and I'm presuming based on historical operation that things will be like that. I would have hoped that the bike medics would have spread out a little bit along the course, but the bike medics, they communicate with those guys via paging or text messaging, or they may call them on their cell phone, or some of them may actually have a P25 radio. But essentially, all of that's handled from the UCC, and there's a medical director that's in communication with those, and all the medical resources are dispatched out of the UCC. So call in and get a message to the UCC that says you got a distressed runner, whether it's an elite runner, or I've got a runner down at this location. And what they're supposed to do is actually dispatch a bike medic. Or if it is apparent that the guy is like having a heart attack, they'll dispatch HPD, I'm not HPD, but HFD ambulance. So anyway, that's one of the key things is to get an accurate assessment and call that in and get resources there. But it's disheartening to see that they're bunched together.
Yeah, because they just blaze by. And the last time we actually had a marathon, trying to get a bike medic to come backwards on the course is really hard because they're fighting the runners. And at 6.5, we actually had a runner that went down and they broke their thumb. And we actually had Army volunteers at 6.5, and one of them was an Army medic. So they provided the medical. It works. It's just, it's a little frustrating to see this crowd of bikes come by, and they're all bike medics, but they don't seem to be, at least from my perspective, they don't seem to be pairing off as they go further down. And 6.5 is where, if you're an inexperienced runner, this is where they start having problems.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, Peter it may be a good person to watch that. Yeah, and I mean, Peter will be on the end of the SAG call in, and Ben may be monitoring that too. But anyway, Peter and Jonathan call into them, and they can, the medical people will be 1 aisle away from them. So it could be just a matter of standing up and tapping the guy on the shoulder.
Okay. Other question is an observation, because I've always wondered about this, especially when it's cold. Because I watch the runners taking off all of their clothing, their outer clothing. They take off their jackets. They take off their sweatpants. There's gloves all over the street as they're coming through 6.5. What happens when they get to, say, mile 20? Are there blankets or something? Because at some point, if they stop running, they're going to go into hypothermic shock real quick if it's really cold.
The medical stations actually have thermal blankets and the likes, but I think, if I can remember, I think they picked up 25 tons of equipment of clothing in the first 2 or 3 miles from the start line.
Oh, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, we have at one of the events, we had a 4-foot high pile, and this stuff they're throwing off isn't cheap. I mean, some of this stuff they're throwing off is really expensive.
My daughter-in-law is a runner, and I was asking her about that. She goes, most of I'll put it this way, the common runners, not maybe the elites, but the common runners, they actually go get a coat or a jacket or a sweater from Goodwill, and so essentially they it's for $2 and they ditch it, and so it's and so then the marathon actually picks it up. And they send it to somebody who actually recycles all that.
Yeah,
It goes
yeah,
back
yeah.
to
We
Goodwill.
we don't throw it away.
And so
it's just interesting to watch the clothing start coming off.
The dynamics, the human behavior dynamics is interesting in this event.
So it sounds like they're doing a rental service on the
Yeah,
clothing.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, you rent it for the duration of the run up to the marathon, and it goes back to the supplier after the marathon.
So anyway, that's the insight my daughter-in-law, who's in the 8 Corral for the half marathon this year, provided. So it's like, okay, thank you. Didn't have that insight. So
Is the list in the website up to date on assignments?
it is not. It's probably about 95% accurate, but if you take a look on Rick's website, there's a tab that I list everybody by location. It's a dump, and it's nearly up to date. I've got some folks that I'm repositioning off of the SAG fans into other assignments, and there's another swap, but it's generally accurate. But I'll probably have that up to date by tomorrow.
Yeah, is that Rick's site? What do you mean?
Yeah, Rick. The Google documents that Rick shares. So if you look on the Google Docs, there's a tab that I've updated. You'll see it's updated by like the 4th or the 5th of January. I pasted what my assignments were in there. It's one of the tabs down the way.
I think I still have the link to the Google Doc from last year or in 2019, I guess. 2020.
Is that Google Doc thing widely distributed though, or is that only to the net control?
It's just mostly to the NCS guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I think this question may be from somebody who's not involved in net control.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Paul was asking the question, so.
Yes, I think he was asking it in behalf of somebody else.
Okay, I mean, the other side, on Peter's webpage, if you go to hmhams.org/assignments, there's a table there that shows what everybody's assignment is or generally is. And so you see all the refueling. You can sort by all the refueling stations, all the SAG people, and see what those assignments are.
Yeah.
That's the page I was referring to.
Yeah, but I'll give you a better page. I'll give you a spreadsheet.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Lee, this is, again, this is for somebody who is not net control, has asked in the chat. I don't see myself assigned on the assignments page. They're not net control.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I
Reese,
think the message is you're going to get it updated in the next couple of days, after which you'll send out an email.
So Reese, I see Reese. Reese had signed up only on the marathon's webpage, not your webpage, and so he won't find himself there. I don't think he's there. Let me see if I've got. Let me check real quick.
Well, I can tell you he's not got an assignment on my site.
No,
currently.
He signed up several days ago, so I have not had a chance to update it there. Like I said, he's in the. I see him in the bunch. I just have not updated his assignment. He should have received an assignment. He's at basically half mile 10 at the water station at half marathon mile 10 with Rick Hall. Rick Hall is operating the medical, and so he'll be on the north side of the parking lot for Texas Art Supply, and Rick Hall will be on the south side of Texas Art Supply there on Montrose. But he should have received an email from me with that. But yeah, I'll get those are the last minute things. I've been shuffling some folks around, so I've got to go back and do a little bit of remedial action, but it's about 96-97% accurate. Thanks, Peter, for spotting that.
Yeah. Okay. Just to go back to the topic of the bike medics zooming past, I think it was 6.5. I can mention the need to have a bike medic at the 6.5, but I can also imagine that if the dispatching staff for the medic team says, hey, you guys all need to go to, these other mile marker locations on the course, that they tell these guys on the bikes, probably as a group, and they're all probably madly in a rush to get to their assigned location. And that's possibly an explanation for why you might see a whole bunch of bike medics roaring past where you are to get to where they are assigned to, even though you may have a need. I would think that they ought to be educated so that they can be more aware of what's going on around them. And maybe if somebody can flag them down to be responsive instead of saying, hey, no, that's not my job. I need to go to where I've been told to go, and allow, an interruption to their arriving on scene.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take an action item to call Mike Root and post with him what our observations are from past experiences, and ask him to pass that information along into the medical realm and see if they can maybe address that with their bike medics a priori, and at least where they don't all go out in one bunch, maybe spread out, but also just have people stationed along the way. And again, what I'm not aware of is what their staffing levels are, and if they're in presuming that a majority of the cases are, say, past mile 12 or 15 or 18, pick a number, and that they're getting people pre-positioned for what they perceive as the issue, and they're bypassing some other issues. So I don't know how they're trying to prioritize their resources, but I'll raise it as an issue that the hams have observed this to be a problematic starting about 6.5. Make sense? Silence. Okay. Did I miss any questions? Anybody else have questions? Quick summary. Has this been useful?
Yes.
Yeah, very useful. Thank you.
Yes.
Is there anything that
Very useful.
Is there anything that needs to be added, or something that you prefer I never to say again, other than wearing a mask?
You didn't mention when the catered dinner happens.
Oh, the catered dinner. Oh, gosh. I haven't seen that announcement either. But, the food, there are some places that you have an assignment that you might get some food. There's some other places you might not get anything other than water and Gatorade. I don't know. In the GRB, we've been able to scrounge from time to time for some food. Along the course, in fact, somebody was telling me that there's, I want to say, at a particular mile marker, the sector captain sets up, grills hot dogs, and has soft drinks for kids and other things for other people. Anyway, I don't know. Those of you who have worked the streets before, my assumption is they feed some of the folks out there, but I don't know that for sure. No input. Anybody that's worked it before, mile 6.5, Have you ever seen the likes of any food at mile 6.5 other than Burger King right there or McDonald's?
No, but I suspect they have something at the elite tent.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But the only time I go up there is when they have a problem. So I got enough problems down at, the Gatorade station.
Oh yeah. So they may have more problems at the Gatorade station. They've from the volunteer perspective, it appears that they're running about third the number of volunteers that they typically have.
Well, they seem to, in the past, they seem to have more volunteers than runners at times, but
yeah.
In fact,
anyway,
so many volunteers standing out there trying to hold the paper cups up that they get in the way of the runners.
That may not be an issue this year. So, yeah, they're actually talking about a MacGyver thing where you take a long tube with a bunch of little spigots where they can like wand through the through the glasses to fill them up. So anyway, they're being innovative, trying to figure out how to deal with this. So it'll be interesting. The one thing I will ask, what would be useful for me is, since all you guys are generally packing cell phones, take some pictures of your assignment. I'm at a lack for pictures and all that. So take a few pictures, send them to me. I'd appreciate it, and then we can, and just tell me where it is, because I'm sure after 15 different water stations they'll look similar. So let me know what that is. So anyway.
Well, I can tell you from experience, it's not difficult to understand when 6.5 is closed for traffic, because it seems like half of HPD shows up.
Yep, and a couple buses. So
anyway. It is, but that's at Kirby and coming off of the Southwest Freeway. So that's your scenario. Is I'm always watching that end to see if something's coming through the barricades.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, at the CVS pharmacy and Good Company Taqueria.
Yeah. And for some reason, we have people driving through the parking lot, and they use that parking lot as a shortcut to get around the intersection.
Oh, yeah.
It is a problem, because I usually have an officer down there at that driveway to close it off, and they're screaming at the office, and he's just standing there smiling, telling them to go behind the building, because they've got a driveway behind the building. So I don't know where they go. I mean,
West Park is open right there, so they basically got to exit out to West Park. But I mean, the Kirby's closed. Kirby's closed down to Bissonnet. So
yeah, but they seem to be taking a shortcut through that parking lot. So we have a lot of traffic. First, we have the runners on the roadway, then we've got the water station, and then we've got the traffic going through the parking lot behind us. So if you want to get something out of your vehicle, you got to watch that you're not getting hit by someone that's taking a shortcut through the parking lot.
Hey, Lee, so the map has been updated to add the Sag stations as a selectable layer. I mean, like you've said, most of the Sag stations are very close to the aid stations.
Yeah.
But, for some people that are at the water stations, it might be useful for them to see where the Sag stations are.
You can inundate people with all the information. So when they get on site, having availability of that sometimes online, particularly, we can leverage the advances in technology also. So anyway, gents, we are coming up to noon, it looks like. So anyway, we can, being typical hams, we could probably talk until the sun goes down. But anyway, I appreciate all your time and effort and all your contributions that you're yet to make for this year's event. We'll keep on praying for good weather and all of that. And thank you for your time. And look forward to perhaps seeing you or at least hearing you out at the various locations. And I'll be inundating your email boxes just a few more times, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, let me.
Thank you for all your effort.
Yeah, no, it's the one thing about it is that it's having all you guys helping gives impetus and reason to put any effort in. So it's the reward. Part of the reward is working with a great bunch of guys who can make